Okay, here's more. This is more contemporary philosophy. So at the very far left, and it's not really an order anymore by author. It's now sort of an order of subject in philosophy. So this book here it is called Determinism, Free Will, and Moral Responsibility by Dworkin. Next one is I think it's by Sidney Hook, Determinism and Freedom. And next one is Free Will by D.J. O'Connor. So that's why those are all together, right? Next one is Individuals. I was like, whoa, really? Someone's going to talk about that. An essay in descriptive metaphysics, so I don't know what they're going to have to say about that. It's by Strawson. So what are they going to say? Metaphysics, individuals don't exist? Or well, we'll see. We'll see. Here's a Philosophy of Mind, a really old one I've had for a long time. Philosophy of Mind by Chappell. Here's Dan Dennett's big Consciousness Explained. Got that for 75 cents somewhere. I was interested for a little bit of time in my research about the development of self-awareness and in children, consciousness in children. Its development, because it obviously at one point doesn't exist, and then at some point we become self-aware, and what's the transition with that? So that's why I have it, but I'm not really doing that stuff anymore. Here's a book on existentialism by Mary Warnick. Here's the other, here's Pragmatism, Philosophy. And here's the other William James book, of course, The Writings of William James. So that's the other psychology book. I'll talk more about pragmatism a little bit later when I get to my education stuff. But pragmatism is definitely an issue in how it underlies a lot of educational ideas. But I'll get to that later when I talk about John Dewey. Here is the Book of Absolutes by William Gairdner. I did read this one. This is your Critique of Relativism and a Defense of Universals. It was actually an interesting book. It talks a lot about absolutes and that they exist, and he lists a whole bunch of absolutes. He also takes the difficulty in finding cultural absolutes. Like, for example, I think dancing. Dancing, I guess, is ubiquitous in all cultures that ever existed on the earth. All kinds of absolutes that have arisen in all human cultures. And so he attacks relativism in that sense. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Here's some books that I got a long time ago from, you may know a YouTuber online by Molyneux. I did get these, and I did read them. So here's his Universally Preferable Behavior, Rational Proof of Secular Ethics. So he does away with gods, and he does away with governments, and he comes up with an ethical framework. He has a very commonsensical rhetoric, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. He uses example. He talks very unacademically, and that I don't want to say that's a bad thing necessarily. But it's certainly different and unique, and I don't know how he's going to be. He certainly has a humongous YouTube presence. He claims to have the largest philosophy program, or philosophy, like internet show or internet website or collection of people collection of like people from the public who talk about philosophy in the world. I'm interested to see how that pans out in like 20 years, for example. He certainly tours the world and does talks and stuff like that. So here's his other, The Truth, the Tyranny of Illusion. I read these a long time ago. I don't remember anything about them, so I can't really, but I have them here. I think they were Lulu or something. Yeah, so these are self-published. You probably can still get them if you really wanted to. So, but yeah, I think you should read everything, especially stuff you disagree with. Here's some Ayn Rand stuff. Ayn Rand Lexicon. By the way, there is a website you can get books donated to you if if you want to try them out. Like, for example, you want the Fountainhead or something. You want to try out Ayn Rand. Just Google it. I think it's called Free Objectivist Books. You can just ask if you can have it, make a little post, and maybe someone will send it to you, and then you can send other people's books. You can give back, kind of thing. So I got this one through that, the Ayn Rand Lexicon. So this is a reference book. You can look up concepts and see how Ayn Rand defined them and all that stuff. Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology by Ayn Rand. This is the expanded. I picked that one up in a used bookstore for cheap, actually, so that was a good find. So I have not, this is a reference book, obviously. This is actually also online. If you go to the Ayn Rand Institute website, their bookstore, this is all online too. You can just use it like a dictionary. You can search a word and see what it does is it quotes how the word is defined in her other works. That's the point of this book. I haven't been through this, so I can't say too much about it. Objectivist Epistemology. So here's Ayn Rand's Philosophy Who Needs It. If you are not at all, if you don't know much about philosophy, and you're interested in Ayn Rand because she's talked about in the media, or she's usually caricatured in the media, don't depend on the media for your knowledge or your understanding. They often completely miss the point and misconstrue. They are terrible sources of deep knowledge. Get the news of the day, and that's it. Stay away from anything else in the media, in the newspapers and TV and stuff like that. If you're interested in philosophy and you're new to it, and you're also interested in Ayn Rand, then I would start with this one right here, Philosophy Who Needs It. This will give you justification for why every person needs to know some fundamentals of philosophy, especially if you're a member of the public, especially if you want to be a competent voter, especially if you want to be an educated person. You need to be a journeyman, or you need to be certainly a journeyman. You need to know a little bit about everything. And then, of course, a lot about whatever you do for a living or whatever, your interests or hobbies, stuff like that. So that's a good place to start. Here's more stuff. Ayn Rand's answers. So this is just random question-answer stuff that she has done. Like if she did a presentation somewhere and there was a question period, then they'll be in there. But it's not, I'm pretty sure I have been through it. I'm pretty sure it is not, it doesn't say like, she talked about this on this day and in this hall. I think it's just random question answers that the authors put together. So, and here is the virtue of selfishness. So this is her ethics. This is often caricatured, selfishness. So we'll just screw everyone. That she thought that was a virtue. No, she did not. That's all just ridiculous. She did not advocate for screw everyone. Obviously, she began with the principle of individual rights, and thus you have your own sovereignty. Kind of came out of the Magna Carta, that a person, rather than being a serf to the king on some farmland, that a person had their own sovereignty. That's a very important point for if anyone is knowledgeable, interested in what liberty means. The sovereignty of the individual. So that is a better way of that would have been a word that could be less caricatured in the media of Ayn Rand if she used that instead of the virtue of selfishness. So, but really what she means is the virtue of having sovereignty. So as you're not a slave to other people, that kind of stuff. So yeah, you have a right to exist, that kind of stuff. Also should mention real quick, I had this by my bed. I had it actually by there for a while. I haven't touched it in a while. I've been reading a little bit of it, but here's Ayn Rand's Objectivism and Philosophy of Ayn Rand by Leonard Peikoff. So this is all of her. This is all her philosophy. If you wanted all of it, then it would be right in that one. So I just thought I'd mention that I have that one. Okay, so here's now more general work. So moral reasoning. This was a library book, and I just picked it up for free. Ethical Theory and Some Contemporary Moral Problems. They're probably going to be all lifeboat. I haven't looked through that yet, but they're probably going to be all lifeboat scenarios, and I'm always annoyed about that because lifeboat scenarios don't happen to people. They are so inconsequential and irrelevant to 99.999% of the people in the world. Why would that be the basis of ethics? To have those? It doesn't make sense. Why test our ethical theories on the most on examples that will never happen, almost never happen to people? Why that be the test? Because they use those things. They use lifeboat scenarios as testers of ethical theories, but it's ridiculous. Like, I'm sure you've heard about there's a train on a track. It's going to hit. If you pull the lever, it's going to switch at the track to hit one person, or you can let it go and it'll hit 10 people. What do? Let's not base our ethics on stupid stuff like that. When is that going to happen? That's just ridiculous. Here's a book I picked up recently. I think this was it. I think this was a Harvard. Oh yeah, there it is, Harvard. Yeah. I looked at the back. I picked up for I think it was $4 or something. I looked at the back, and it was sort of a critique of reason, that reason can't always solve our problems and stuff like that. So I thought, well, I'll see what it has to say. But I haven't looked at it yet. Here's a book, Thinking Straight. So, yeah, just about thinking, and I haven't looked through that. By Beardsley, I guess. All right, here's The Brief History of Everything. Fairly big book. I'm going to show you a little part in it here. It's by Wilber. I read it a while ago, and I didn't get anything out of it, which is unfortunate, and I probably need to return to it. But it was very obscure, and I'll just show you this, and maybe you can make sense of it. And so it just talked about behavior versus social versus culture versus intentional. And it had it had this, you see how it says I in it, and we in its. So, anyways, pause the video and just have a look, and if it interests you, then pick it up and read it. You probably could get it cheap on Abe Books or Amazon or yeah, those are probably the main ones. Book Depository, UK Book Depository. Okay, Within Reason, Rationality and Human Behavior by Donald B. Calm. I also picked this one up for cheap. And I think it mentioned that can human beings always be rational, and are human beings rational? And it probably uses statistics and, oh look, human beings aren't rational, and just stuff, kind of dumb stuff like that. But anyways, I picked it up for to flip through one day. Here's some other kind of joke books. God, the Devil, and the Perfect Pizza. So this is it says 10 philosophical questions. So that's just for fun. Here's an existential book. So it's called This Is Not a Book, and it's by Michael Picard. That's also just a kind of a fun book. Here's Ethics by Frank Kenna. He is sort of a name in ethical circles, but okay. Now I have what are these? These were like general philosophy. So I've got here Robert Nozick, Philosophical Explanations. The Story of Philosophy by Will Durant. I have heard that this book is praised as a very good introduction to philosophy. The other one, the Ayn Rand's book, this is an introduction to why you need to know philosophy. But this book it gives you information about philosophers in a very easy way, and a very easy to read way. So this is more information. The other one's a justification. This is more information for you. This is a good beginning to you for philosophy. So those two would be a very good pair, I think. This is by Will Durant. Next, Classical Philosophical Questions. It's a textbook. Look at it, 12th edition. It's a textbook. I picked it up somewhere cheap. This one I actually had as a textbook when I took first year philosophy. 20 questions, 4th edition. And what we did in that class is we just wrote on questions. There was a question, like I remember one of them was, is capitalism compatible with justice? I think that's what it was. And we were given two authors, one for and one against, and our professor would talk about them both neutrally, and then we'd have to write on it, and we would choose one or the other, and we would argue it, and that was it. So it certainly wasn't very in-depth philosophy. It wasn't the method of philosophy, but yeah. So, and then here's a nice stack. I got these from professor was retiring, opened up his office, and said I could take anything I wanted, and so I did. Here is an entire series on the history of philosophy by Copplestone with 1P, all the way from volume 1 to volume 9, and some of them have parts. So like volume 1, part 1, volume 1, part 2. Yeah. And it goes from Greece and Rome all the way down to, I'm not sure. Well, it says modern philosophy, Bertram to Russell, and then the bottom one it doesn't say. I think it stopped at, I don't want to say Sartre. Maybe it was Sartre. I think it stopped at Sartre. Yeah, I think so. Okay, that is my philosophy section. Next, I have some political philosophy. So that's sort of the end, but it's not really the end. Next is political philosophy and economics and commerce.